and having taken 3, we'll then go along the line, and I will swap it around so everyone has a go at coming first. Right at the back there, please. Yeah.
Yes, what personal qualities can you bring to the job of the MEP?
Thank you. And Sue?
Yeah. We heard varied stories, either people's life stories or people being passionate about things. And given if you're an MEP, you can't cover absolutely everything. What would your specialities be if elected?
Thank you. And
yes, youth unemployment is over 50% in countries such as Spain, Greece, and stirs throughout Europe. What will you be doing in the European Parliament to deal with this problem?
Can I actually bring are my ability to engage with people and actually listen. I think one of the things that is often criticised about politicians is that we're out of touch and we don't listen. I've got real life experience, I've got a real life, I work outside of politics as well, and those are some of the things that I can actually bring as an MEP to the East of England. In terms of specialities, what I'm going to say is I'm not actually going to declare a special interest straight away. I've got a lot of policy interests, such as, I'm interested in health, things like human trafficking, human rights, things that are happening in the global world, the environment. Those are the sorts of things I would be interested in. But I think my speciality is going to be actually representing the people of the East of England, and that can be done by using some of the qualities that I have, actually talking to the electorate. There are 6 million people that live in the East of England, and representing them is going to be my first and foremost goal. I mean, as a new MEP as well, I'm going to have a lot to learn. It's a steep learning curve, and it's about building relationships, negotiation, and steering your way through various complex areas. We will be working with the Party of European Socialists, but they are different, and it'll be my responsibility to make sure I deliver for the people that live in the East. In terms of youth unemployment, I think what I would do straight away is actually start engaging with young people. We're talking a lot about, the Youth Jobs Guarantee, but it seems that we're going to be doing that to them. And the best way to actually make a difference to people is to talk to young people. We have a huge problem in this country that young people don't engage in politics, and they don't actually always have a right or a say in what they want. So actually I would start by actually talking to them and asking them what they want, and then helping them to into careers and into jobs that actually really matter to them. It's interesting, your question about industrial relations and the Works Council. I've actually worked for a German pharmaceutical company, and we did have an elected Works Council, even though it was based in the UK, and we also used to send representatives to the European Works Council. And initially, and everyone was democratically elected from the company, and initially we used to be quite cynical about what it could achieve. But after a couple of years of being involved with it, when it actually did come to things like redundancies and better terms and conditions at work, that was actually something that we could actually lobby for. Furthermore, I think this sort of model should be taken forward in the future, because there has been a rise, which is a good thing, of private sector union membership, which we desperately need, because it's unfair at the moment that people get fair representation in the public sector, but if you're a union member in the private sector, it can be very tough, and if you're not a union member, then it's even worse. So that's something that I would actually be pro. In terms of what I've already done to engage with young people, I've always engaged with young people. I did that when I stood for Parliament, and in this actual particular election as well, just to say that I have been endorsed by both the Labour clubs in the East of England, the University of Essex and the University of East Anglia Labour students. So I'm already engaging with them, and the reason I've been doing that as well is that, like you say, young people are very disenfranchised in terms of where politics is going and what their future holds. And if we are actually going to make sure that they stay engaged in the future and that we're doing the right things for them, then it's important that I do that. And what I will pledge to say is that if elected to the European Parliament, I will continue that dialogue with young people that I have been doing. You asked a question about communities and what we can do about fuel poverty. I think some of the points that are already made are relevant. I think one of the things that hasn't been raised actually is that we need to break the stronghold of oil and oil companies. And the way to do that is actually bring a focus into green energies. So not only will we be able to break that stronghold, but at the same time we'll be able to bring jobs to the East of England. It's something that the East of England is actually known for. And by actually looking at alternative energies and what we can do, we can break that stronghold, hopefully get people out of fuel poverty and bring jobs and growth to the East of England. Skeptical voter. Obviously I'd be talking to you about the jobs, but that's been covered already. I think the other thing that I would actually persuade you about is trade, and the fact that Europe is central to how much things actually cost in this country. I mean, it's a known fact that the reason why, American companies are here in the UK is because so they can go and then trade on with the rest of Europe. And also the BRIC countries have already said that they are only going to trade with Europe. So if we were to leave Europe and we're going to be sceptical about Europe, then what that will mean is that everything will become more expensive and actually it hits the bottom line. So, and obviously then that also then has an effect on trade, jobs, etc. Food prices. I think what we actually need is more of a minimum wage across Europe. A lot of the problems are being caused by the fact that people get paid so differently across Europe. And I wouldn't just be campaigning for a minimum wage, I would actually be campaigning for a living wage. And then, it doesn't matter then what food prices are, because then everybody will be able to afford the same. I think it's a disgrace that in the 21st century that people across Europe, including the UK, actually have to go to food banks. We are some of the richest nations on the planet, and that's how I would actually tackle that. Environmental policies, I actually touched on that, and it is about looking at what we have in the East of England. We have got the ability to have alternative energies, things like wind farms, etc. But the other thing that I think, the other role that Europe can play massively in terms of environmental policies is the global impact it can have in terms of tackling climate change, which is going to affect everybody. And they're not necessarily listening to the UK alone, but with all the other countries coming together, maybe we can persuade the BRIC nations, Brazil, India, China, South Africa, Russia, that they also need to actually try and reduce their carbon emissions for the good of the globe. In terms of value for money, I think that is actually one of the criticisms about the EU, is that we're not very good at publicising where EU money gets spent, and EU money is getting spent across the region, but many a time when any project is funded by the EU, often it's Tory councils, Tory government who like to take away the plaque, so everyone thinks that actually nothing's getting spent. We just give a lot of money to Europe and we get nothing in return. So I think if those blue signs and things are getting taken down, I think it's our responsibility as the Labour Party to be actually championing and telling people about the good that the EU actually does do to this country, and actually also focusing on the fact that what it actually brings in terms of trade, growth, etc. In terms of levels of cycling, I can tell you something personal about me. I would actually be pro-increasing more cycling, but at the same time I've got to admit that I can't actually ride a bike, so maybe that's at the same time I will also have to learn to ride a bike. So if anybody wants to teach me, hopefully I won't have a broken neck that time. But I also think that if we are going to seriously improve cycling, is that we have to look at road safety as well, because at the moment I don't believe that some of the roads actually are safe for cycling to happen, whereas when you look at other European countries, places like Amsterdam, cyclists have safe ways of travelling on roads. If I was called to the Sunday politics, just like that, and I didn't have Richard there, what would I do? I've actually, tonight, when I've been speaking, I am actually speaking without notes. So I think I've got the skills to be able to go on a TV programme or on a radio interview, and I've actually done it when I was a parliamentary candidate as well. I've had many a microphone shoved in my face in the constituency, at Labour Party conference, and I found myself on news programmes, giving snippets, being quoted in the newspapers, so actually I just carry on the way I mean to go on, like I'm doing now. Start at the beginning. How can the UK work with Europe in terms of defence purposes? I think we lead by example. We've had peace in Europe for over 60 years now, and that should be the model that we portray to the world. And it's by our negotiation powers and by talking. I'm totally against any country in Europe, including the UK, going to sell arms to places like Syria, because that actually just makes conflict worse. So I would say, we are strongest in how we can go negotiate and how we can actually help nations where democracy is failing to actually build on democracy and give people the power and the rights to speak up and represent themselves. Neoliberal versus capitalist social club. Enclave. I think it's more a socialist enclave, actually. I think we have to focus on the good things that Europe has already given us. A lot of the good policies that we've got have come from Europe, things like the Working Time Directive, human rights, consumer rights. They're all socialist principles that we actually have enshrined in UK law. So, would I call it a neoliberalist capitalist club? No, because it's actually clear the markets fail. What's going on in Europe now in terms of jobs and prosperity is because capitalism is failing. And if we're going to get good things like the financial transactions tax, things like cap on bankers' bonuses, it's actually going to be Europe that's going to be delivering on those socialist policies. So I think we're more socialist and we need to be focusing on that. Benefits of immigration. I just stand up and say, me. I'm the daughter of two parents who came from India and Africa. My mother was born in Africa after my grandparents were invited back and to go and work by the British in East Africa. And I think that our country is actually made better by the diversity of people within it, and the social benefits, the economic benefits, and just the tolerance that it brings, and actually we are a nation of just mixed up people, and that's actually what makes this place a very beautiful and tolerant place to live. I did a master's in ageing studies, which is what it is, and a big influence in my life was my late grandmother. And through the work I did with her, through the values that she instilled in me, I see that actually we have a huge problem, not just in the UK, but across Europe. We've got an ageing population, more and more people are going to be suffering from dementia. What I did find is yesterday I actually attended an event with Andy Burnham, and he is talking about personal budgets, which will take in social care, mental health care, and medical care. And actually that is the only way that we're going to actually make sure that older people with dementia, with mental health needs, etc., are actually treated fairly. And he's also pledging, possibly, that we're going to have career pathways for carers, because it's absolutely ridiculous that people think that carers given no-hope jobs, they get paid minimum wage, they have 15 minutes to care for people. That is not the way to actually deliver care for older people. So actually, I'm actually totally support what he's going to be doing. I just want to say thank you all very much for coming along, for all the interesting questions that we've had tonight as well. And I also humbly ask you that you might support me to be your #1 woman candidate on the ballot. Many thanks.